Hello, I'm Q2F2 and welcome to my video to give you a brief introduction to programming Lua, or should I say scripting Lua, in a Garry's Mod environment, what's known as GLua. So firstly, today, let's start with the tools we're going to be using. As you can see here, the only single one we're going to be using today, and that is ZB Studio, which is the Zero Brain Studio. If you watched my other tutorial, you would have heard me mention this. I said we wasn't going to use it because we wasn't talking specifically about Lua today. But today we are, so I'm just going to open up ZB Studio. And I'm going to go back to my local srcds server. I made a folder from test add-on. In here, as per the previous tutorial, so run. This auto run is a folder that, Lua. Lua indicates that there will be scripts. Auto run indicates that they will be run as soon as the add-on is loaded. And today we're just going to do a single shared file. I'm going to name learn.lua. So let's open this up with ZB Studio. First thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to click this button here, which I know is at the side. I should really, personally, this will set the directory, the working directory, to current file you have open. If I could click, thank you. So you can see that's add-ons auto run. Generally, I want a base file, so I'm just going to make txt and name this add-on.txt. Not necessary, but what I can do is I can set the projects from here, and it will inherit, which is useful. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go to the wiki, because when you're coding Lua for Garry's Mod, you're always going to need the G-Wiki open, almost always, because especially when you're beginning, because you won't know how to do half the things. Now, you don't want to straight away search, how do I do this in Garry's Mod, how do I do that in Garry's Mod? You want to apply and try and abstract the problem. Break it down into small pieces and think, I want to draw a square, so first I have to think, what colour is that square going to be? This is similar to what we did in the other video. Do I want to add a texture to that square? And if it's a texture, is it going to be different from just drawing a purely coloured square? What size is that square going to be? And where is it going to be on a screen? We want to draw a square every frame, otherwise it will be no use. So how are we going to draw every frame? Now, a key aspect, which was the last thing I referred to there, was we want to draw every frame. Now, what we want to do there is use an aspect of Garry's Mod, which is called a hook. Hooks are they're function callbacks which are triggered when an event occurs within the game. So, say for example, we want to draw something of in a two-dimensional manner on our HUD. So we would use the hook HUD paint. GM standing for game mode, which I'll explain later. You don't need to worry about that. Just worry about this. Another thing to notice on the wiki is this orange little blob here means it's client side, and it will most likely make an error or not work at all if it's running server side. With hooks, they'll act differently, potentially, considering which realm you're on, but we'll be covering realms in a second. So we want to we can use hooks as per demonstration in this example to run code when a specific event happens. Now, depending on what you're coding, you want different events to happen. So let's think about what events are going to happen. So let's think. In Garry's Mod, there are 3 main realms. 4 if you class combination realms. So right here we're sitting on the menu. Now this is the least used of the realms, which is indicated with green, known as the menu realm. The menu realm is where the menu itself presides. Now, if we were to join a server, let's start up our local server. Yes, there we go. Let's give that a second to load. If we were to join our... Okay then, I guess we're just joining hexahedronic. Okay, so if we were to join a server, let's just wait for me to connect to my own server. I'll just jump cut until when I'm loaded in, because I can't really explain it without showing you. Alright, so now we're on my server, we can now consider the other realms, other than menu, which we've already discussed, which it's important to realise the menu state continues to run in its own separate environment even when the game is ongoing, because the menu still exists. Not now, Laundis.
Not now.
So, if you look around, you can see we're running around, bouncing around. We can see things. Now, it's important to realise the server is not rendering anything. The server knows where physics objects are, knows that I am jumping around, it knows which direction I'm looking in, it knows where everything is, but it doesn't know what anything looks like. It knows technical information about what it looks like, but your client renders that technical information, which is shared. Now there's three key terms we want to pick up here, which is server, client, and shared. If you are not a complete beginner with this, you'll know what these mean. The client is what does the rendering. It's the game on your computer. The client uses technical information to draw things, render things, which are pretty much synonymous. And yeah. Shared information is, say for example, this texture here. Not this decal, but the actual texture, the wall. Let's use a better example. This wall here. The server knows for a fact that this wall exists, otherwise I could just jump through it. The server also knows that this is a specific texture applied to this wall. And my client knows the exact same information, which is something to do with prediction, which we'll cover most likely in another video, because it's going to be a bit complex to cover it all in this. But if the client didn't know this wall was here, I'd be glitching through it right now. And if the client didn't know what texture this wall had, well, it would be a missing texture, wouldn't it? There's also some information the server has, which you do not. It's important to realise that if the client had every single piece of information, cheating would be a lot more prevalent and things would be a lot less secure, because you can't trust clients, in most cases at least. And it's also important to know that the client has some data that the server does not, such as some lighting information or whatnot. Potentially, I'm not exactly sure what in the source engine itself would be client-side only, but also you can assign client-side only information. For example, on base rules here, we have the F3 menu. Ignore that, that's nothing, that's just our air conditioner. We have the F3 menu here, which is a GUI panel. The server knows nothing about this panel. You could ask it any question about the Space Source menu and it would be like, what? What's Space Source menu? What in God's name are you talking about? That's because this is in the client-side realm, which is what I referred to here, the orange symbols. And if I just quickly enable EPOE, I can demonstrate some server-side data. So, for example, if I'm using LuaDev, you don't need to worry about this. This is just to demonstrate. Let's think of some information the server might want that I won't. So, fact, let's have a look at the hooks here. This would be more appropriate. Let's think. What one of these hooks would we like to demonstrate? We want to look for a blue hook because blue hooks indicate server hooks. And as you probably already guessed, the ones that are half blue and half orange are shared, which is a combination. They run on both client and server. Here's a good hook to demonstrate, which is show help. Let's quickly add a hook. I'm just going to close my server now because there seems to be an issue with it. Exit. XX. Oops, there we go. We can, oh, what was I doing? Yes, we can demonstrate show help. So, to do this, we're going to ignore the .l. This is just so I can run Lua. We're going to use the Gmod hooking system. Which, in fact, I think instead I'm going to switch over so I can run the script so I can use ZB Studio to demonstrate this. Alright, so we're back, and this time we're in my local Garry's mod install, as you can see by this. So, without further ado, let's do what we were talking about. So, we're going to be running this on the server. Now, obviously, if you want to run your scripts on the server, I'll be covering that in a bit to show you when my local server is working correctly, how we'd go about doing that. But for now, I'm going to run it using LuaDev, which you will not have, but it's the same principle. So firstly, we're going to try and add a show help hook. Now, what does show help do? Called when the player executes the GM show help command. If bind is F1. So if I were to go in game and press F1, nothing happens for me. Oh my god.
Please, no!
We're going to use Garry's hooking system to do so. So let's have a look at hook.add. Now, in Lua there are constructs named functions, which allow you to repeat a piece of code by calling the function. For example, here we have a nice demonstration. Local, I will be talking about in a bit when I get to scoping. Function indicates it's a function. This is the name of the function. Example, here we are using a think hook, so we were going to name this onThink to be logical. Think has no arguments, so we don't need to worry about this. We'll just do some brackets. Oh no, I didn't mean to click that. No. Right, so we're back here. For example, here we are just printing this. In fact, I think this is quite some quite good code to demonstrate what we are talking about. Except we're going to use show help instead, and we're going to run this on the server. Also, some interesting variables which will help you code are the global variables server and client. You can use an if statement, which is a conditional if server, then, and this code, which you can see here, which is indicated by this comment. A comment is something that won't run. It's in Lua, you do double dash, and the code will never be run because it is a comment instead of actual code. In this example, this code will only run on the server. So if you make something server-side only, so something's only ever going to go run on the server, you won't need this, because it's only going to be run on the server, and you know this. But if you made something that would be run on shared, and you want to do something different for the client and the server, you can do if server, and server code, else, or we could do else if client. But we don't need to because there's only server and client, because the menu is a completely different thing, and I'll be covering that in another video. It's client code. Do something along the lines of that. So let's implement what we was talking about, which is GM show help. so we can tell if the player presses F1 on the server. So I don't like spaces like this. That's just personal preference, but I don't like them. So I'm just going to do that. So, and what do you think that the appropriate name, given what other people do this? Now, if you've never programmed before, you'll notice that variables are named like this, and then with a new word they have capital letters, but they don't have one for the first letter. That's a naming convention called lower camel casing, which you start with lower and then you go up for every other word. A lot of Garry's my programmers do upper camel casing, like load, file, wow, nice. But personally, I prefer to do lower. It's just semantics, it doesn't actually matter. So, let's do on show help, because that's going to happen. This function, this localized function, which once again I'll talk about local later, is going to show when they request the help menu. So let's say show help has been called, and let's run it on the show help function. This is the unique identifier. Let's call this tutorial. And this is the callback, which is the function which is going to get called. Calling a function means running it. So if I were to call on show help, this line here would be the first to run. Then if we had another line below that, this line would also be run. Wow. Something like that. So on show help. Okay. So let's save this. Also, new line identifier file. Good practice, not needed though. Someone's killed me. So I'm going to use LuaDev to do this, but I'll show you the proper way to load add-ons fully later. So ignore this unless you have LuaDev installed. Lua send SV, which stands for server, tutorial / learn.lua. There we go, I'm running this file on the server. Now, I'm going to try pressing F1. Watch the console at the bottom. Press it 3 times there. 4, 5, 6. Now, I know an interesting fact, and that's that although the think hook we adapted this from has no arguments for the callback, show help does. It tells you the player who's called it. So let's use a nice name for that, the player. PLY, that seems like a reasonable name for the player. You don't want it too long. You don't want to go, the player who called this event, because that's ugly. At the same time, you don't want to go P. Some people do, but what's P? That makes no sense. PLY is a nice middle ground abbreviation. So let's append to this print. On show help has been called by. Now we have a player. A player is an entity. They're not a name. If we append, which is this concatenation, which adds strings together. If we appended the player, I'm almost certain that would make an error. So we don't want to do that. A player, however, has a meta method. We'll learn more about meta methods in another video, but it has a meta method named Nick. Here, classes player Nick returns the player's nickname. So we're going to append player Nick. This should work if I'm not stupid. So let's find out. Let's run it again. I'm going to press F1. Now look, on show help has been called by Q2F2, and I am of course Q2F2. There we go. Now let's try this client side with a bit of a more advanced hook. Let's do some rendering with HUD paint, like I showed you earlier. this time we're going to run this file shared. So let's take this example code, which I'm not exactly a fan of, but it demonstrates my point nicely. Indents that, so I'll remove these horrible actually, you know what, I'm going to show you myself, because I don't like this code at all. I much prefer code like this. So first what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this up to the server code, because it only needs to be run on the server. Also, please make your files nicely indented so you can go if server and it sticks out a bit. Then the function sticks out a bit more. The function's over, so we go back. Stuff like that. That's indentation. Let's leave that on the server. We don't need that space there. Let's write some client code. So we're going to use hood paint. So local function on hood paint. On hood paint has no arguments, so let's just end and hook dot add hood paint tutorial on hood paint. Of course, if you find this hard to read, you can just add more spaces, but I personally prefer it to be a little bit more dense. That's just my own coding stylization. So, what do we want to do on hood paints? Well, why don't we have a look at the render library. Render, which is library render. Wow, that's a lot of functions we can use here. And you probably have no idea what any of them mean. I'm going to be honest, I still do not know what half of these mean. Well, I understand technically, but I have never used them in a context. So let's have a look for one that might be easy to use. Looks simple. Draw a line. Draws a line in 3D space. Now you see, we're drawing on the hood. The hood is not 3D. The hood is a two-dimensional thing. Like this here is the hood. This here is the hood. This is all the hood. But this around me is three-dimensional space. But we're not drawing in 3D, so we don't want to use this function. Let's have a look for another function. Alright. I was thinking, what would we like to draw? Well, I'd like to draw a nice, simple rectangle first, before we get any more complex. So, rectangle. I can't see it here. I'm bad at reading through this stuff. So I'll just search again. Render dot draw rex. No, render dot. How about we just search for rect? Rect short for rectangle. Oh, it's surface. Oh, sorry, not render. Surface dot draw rex. This is something I don't like about Garry's mod. It has multiple libraries which all are a mishmash of the same things, but you know, it's not my game, so we just have to deal with what we have here. So the arguments for this function, this is a built-in function, and this indicates it's a member of surface. So there's the function is draw rect, but it's part of surface. So we're going to draw a solid rectangle on the screen. Let's look at the arguments. Number, x, the x-coordinate, which we start at. Number, y, the y-coordinate, which we start at. Number, width, the width. Number, height, the height. Well, let's draw a nice rectangle. In fact, let's spice this up before we even get started. I mean, you understand the concept of a function by now. So let's use another built-in one, which is SCRW, which stands for screen width. If you think about it, this window is a certain amount of pixels or units across and up. So we can use this function to get how many it is across. Let's divide it by 2. So this will get us the direct center of the horizontal of the screen, We can also have a look at this function on the wiki if we don't know what it does. But we do. Get the width of the Gmod window in pixels. Returns, which is gives us back a value of number the width of the Gmod's window in pixels. Beautiful. We can use a similar function with a similar name, scr for height, to get the height, and we'll divide that by 2. In programming, slash means divide. Now, let's draw a square rather than a rectangle. So 64 by 64. So that's a nice power of the 2 number. Now, I know we're all eager to run this, but it's not going to work. Most likely, it may work, may not, because we're leaving some things to chance. What we also want to do is to set the colour of the rectangle, because if we don't set the colour, whatever drew before this will be setting the colour for us. We don't want that. So let's look at surface again. I think it's surface.set draw colour. There it is. This will set the colour which we're going to draw. So, surface.set draw colour. Now, if you've ever worked with like photo editing software or whatnot, you'll know the concept of RGBA. And in this concept, we're using, rather than between 0 and 1F, we're using 0 to 255, which is bit depth. But you don't need to worry about that. So what colour should we do? I think we'll do a bright red rectangle for now. So let's do 255 for the red, 0 for the green, 0 for the blue, and 255 for the alpha. Alpha layer is how you do transparency, but let's not worry about that yet. So let's run this. It should add this hook to the server to let us press F1 and print that, and it should also draw a nice red square in the middle of everyone's screen, which I'm sure they'll all be super and like over the moon about. So let's run this. Shared. SH was shared. Oh, look, beautiful. Not only does our nice hook on the server still work, but our beautiful red square works too. Oh, but oh no, all our players are now getting really pissed off with me, and the like only player left just left. And Laundis is not very happy. Oh, damn. So I think it's time we fix this. So for now, I'm going to use a long comment, which we can do by doing dash dash, open square bracket, and finish with close square bracket to just remove all this code. But we don't want them to see it anymore. The hook is now redundant, so let's use hook.remove. And it takes the first 2 arguments that hook.add takes. So let's run these. Oh, there we go. It's gone. Beautiful. That's much better, and I'm sure Laundis will be happy that his screen is no longer being violated by a large red square. Now, I believe that's all we have time for today, but I will be creating more videos to elaborate on some of the points I mentioned and to get more specific. Specifically stuff like using Derma to create GUI, such as this menu here, and more advanced logical programming, both server-side and client-side, and obviously shared. And I will also likely do a video covering the basic semantics of menu programming, which is not very frequently at all used, but we still may as well cover it so everyone can start to get a better grip of it. I hope this video has given you an insight into programming with Lua on Garry's mod, and I hope you look forward to my other videos, and thank you for watching.